Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to this it's going to be a very interesting conference meeting. So, just so that we all are on the same page, just to explain, this is being organized by two organizations. Alliance for ETs, whose goal is to, whatever one's beliefs, is to establish an embassy, an official embassy for extraterrestrials. That's one. And the other is by the Raelian movement, which is an organization which brings a message from extraterrestrials to humanity. But this is organized by both of them. And it so happens that I'm a member of both of these, which we'll talk about a bit more later. So that's the context. So first, we're going to start off with a video which will go into various points associated, connected with this. That video will last about 45, 50 minutes. During that video, please write in, if you've got questions, write in the chat your question. And then after the video, it'll become an interactive question and answer session. And the questions which you will have written in the chat during the video, I will answer, and we can discuss those during the interactive session after that. So the order is imminently we'll have the video, about 45 minutes. Then I'll come back after that. Then we'll have a short video showing the interior of the embassy, the proposed embassy. And then we'll have the interactive chat.
Welcome, world, and welcome to this special edition of the Raelian View. In this edition, we're going to be talking about the recent release of Steven Spielberg's new film, Disclosure Day. Not necessarily the film so much, but the implications of the subject of the film, a contact or an open public contact with an extraterrestrial humanity. What would that mean for the world? So I think we should go straight to our guests. And we have some fantastic guests this evening. We have, as always, we have Brigitte Basilier. Brigitte, as you know, is a PhD and the spokesperson for the International Raelian Movement. A scientist with 2 doctoral degrees and whose career spans cloning research and stem cell applications and gene therapy. Brigitte is a recognized pioneer in regenerative medicine and is at the forefront of longevity science and biological innovation. Brigitte also serves as the driving force behind ClitoRaid, a foundation dedicated to restoring the dignity and physical wholeness of women who have undergone female genital mutilation, an organization inspired by Rael, the leader and founder of the International Raelian Movement. Welcome, Brigitte. And we have also a regular on this podcast, Thomas Kenzig, who is the president of the American wing of the International Raelian Movement. One of many interesting things about Thomas is that he was the first person in the United States to obtain a God-free citizenship, which is something I'd love to talk about further because it's actually very in line with this subject. We have a very special guest, Daniel Turcotte, who originally studied, and you're going to have to pronounce this for me correctly, Daniel, kinethropy. I'm sure it's kinetics. Is that something about the movement, the study of the movement of the human being, and founded a school of physiotherapy. However, since 2017, Daniel has been working full-time on the Extraterrestrial Embassy Project, which is a subject that we're going to delve deeply into today. Which is an initiative of the International Raelian Movement. So welcome, Daniel Turcotte. And of course, Léon Melul. Now, Léon's a long-term leader of the Raelian Movement and the chief rabbi and spokesperson for the Messiah, which is the Messiah to those who are only Anglophile. And I'm Glenn Carter. I'm the president of the British wing of the Raelian Movement, and I welcome all of you who are watching. Let's have a lively, free discussion. So, without further ado, I think we should just go straight into the first question. So, I'll pose this to Thomas. I think, why why do we need an embassy for extraterrestrials? Who benefits? And in what way will we benefit as a humanity? What is the benefit of having an embassy for extraterrestrials, which is the project of the Raelian movement?
Yes, thank you, dear Glenn. A few decades ago, people who believed in UFOs and extraterrestrials were called the conspiracy theorists. And it's interesting, a few weeks ago, it was in a Bill Maher show, where he was basically saying that those who do not believe in UFOs and extraterrestrials, they are the ones who are the conspiracy theorists, right? So it's interesting to see this change. And I think in society, a majority of people recognize that there are other beings elsewhere. And obviously then the big question, how do we establish that contact, right? So why an embassy? So I think, first of all, we have to kind of reflect on the kind of the paradigm we're in our society. I would say mainly in Western society, where we often think of the one who is more powerful can impose. We've seen that obviously in colonization, right, of Africa, North America, where the white people came and we are better, we're going to enlighten you, but through force basically, and killing lots of people, bringing something better through force, and this thinking that because I'm more powerful, I'm entitled to impose, and that is not at all the idea here. Our extraterrestrial creators, the Elohim. I think when we think of the why the embassy, in simple terms, it's a matter of respect and politeness. I think the kind of the metaphor I can think of, if you're at home, some of you may have children now, and I'm talking about a very small infant, but starting at a certain age, when you go to your child's room, you just don't walk in, right? You're gonna knock on the door and wait for the child. Yes, come in. Or you could say, well, I'm the father, I made you, and I own this house, I pay for all the bills, I pay for education, hence I'm entitled to impose on you and or walk into your room. But that's, so the Elohim, even though they are powerful to the extent we cannot even imagine, they tell us they can move around entire solar systems. So of course they could just appear and say, well, here we are on an ABC, right? But they say, even though they're so powerful, so more advanced, they say, we love you and you're our children, and we'd love to come back and meet you. So if you want, you can build this embassy. And this embassy is like yes, please come in. And I think that's, in that respect, obviously it goes both ways, right? So this embassy, they ask for it to be built on an extraterritorial piece of land, meaning no government, military, police can walk on there. And just come in there uninvited. So it's kind of like, I would say, a mutual respect. And I think for me, that is probably the deepest teaching, because many times when we think, oh, what are we going to get? A lot of people say, oh, when they come, what are we going to get? And the perspective is very much on the technological side. We can fly much faster, blah, 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 and all that, and kind of the engineering aspect of all this. But much deeper is obviously the cultural change. And I think also the movie, if you look at the movie Disclosure Day, right, where the kind of one of the main points is that in order for humanity to survive, obviously we need more empathy and kindness. And I think the Elohim kind of link their return with a very beautiful teaching. And that is a teaching of respect and love and politeness. So this building will be our sign to say we are ready. And of course, the Elohim have, when we think of the knocking on the door at our room, or the room of the child, the Elohim have done kind of awakened humanity for many decades. It's all these UFO sightings, the crop circles, and these are the so-called the signs in the sky. Remember in Jesus, supposedly in the Gospel of Luke, is in chapter 21, verse 25, 28, where he talks about these signs in the sky, talking about the end of times. And that's the time and age we're in. And so these are all these UFO sightings. It's just a very soft wake-up call, a very soft knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, we are here," and now it is up to us to say, "Yes, please come in," and for that we want to build this embassy.
Yeah, I tend to view us building an embassy and the extraterrestrial creators, the Elohim, not coming without an invitation as a teaching. They're teaching us respect. They're teaching us how to respect, and they're showing us respect to not bang down the door and come in. I think it's a wonderful teaching that they will not come without an invitation, and I think it's a fantastic thing. Léon, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. And it's you are the chief rabbi of the Raelian movement, and I'm guessing this is a question pertaining to Judaism, which is the need for a third temple, or when the Messiah, quote unquote, returns, that will be the time when the third temple is built. What is the third temple? What's the relevance to this discussion of those prophecies, and how does it fit into us, to the world, and to the Raelian philosophy particularly?
Thank you, Glenn. Yes, well, third temple, the first was built by King Solomon, the second one was built by King Herod, and the third temple must be built by the Messiah. Automatically, the Messiah is the last Elohim messenger. He's the one that for hundreds of generations, Jewish people are waiting for. The problem with these people is that they imagine a certain Messiah who will come and do miracles and all that, and then they need to slaughter a cow that will be like a barbecue or like things like that. Today don't apply anymore to the times that we live on. And according to the Elohim message, this is the embassy they're looking for. Now, this embassy is where they can land and be welcome. The first temple Solomon built was to welcome the Elohim. Because of other events, or they didn't show up. And then the temple was destroyed because they were punished by something. After Jesus was sacrificed, who was the one that came, and they said that probably he was the Messiah. And then when he was sacrificed, let's say, in other words, well, they suffer another 2,000 years of diaspora, because the Jewish people are always the ones that have had many prophets that were sent to the land of Israel, over 40. All of them were either killed or jailed. All of them. Because they disturbed the establishment. They disturb what is the power of the religion. If Rael came and say, I am the Messiah, oh yeah, God sent me. Today, there is no God. This is the problem with the people today, that they don't understand that Elohim, it's a plural name, which means in ancient Hebrew, those who came from the skies. The Elohim are our fathers from space. They want to be welcome, and they're not invaders. If they want to come anytime, they can just land and impose themselves. But this is not what they want. They want us to understand and stop believing what Jewish people are doing today. Is just praying a God that doesn't exist. They praying the Elohim without knowing who they are. And it's about time they wake up, because they will be another diaspora. If they don't recognize Rael, this third temple, which is the embassy we want to build, it will be built elsewhere. Then Israel have no reason to exist.
Wow.
This is why we try, and according to the Elohim request, this embassy, or call it third temple, should be built close to Jerusalem. Now, as the people of Israel, as the government of Israel have refused 7 times our request, we're now addressing to other countries. And Rael's dream is to have this embassy in Gaza.
Wow.
Because the Palestinian people are original Jews who were living in the land of Palestine or the land of Israel, that they didn't left when it was the diaspora, because of their family, because of their business, because they didn't want to leave their land, and they stay there. And they have much more right to that land than those who come from Poland, from Germany, from Russia, and from other countries, Ukraine and other countries, that came to Israel, invaded the country, colonized the country, and they proclaimed themselves Jews. Because originally, all those Ashkenaz who came from Eastern Europe, they converted to Judaism. They were from the Khazars, who one of their kings or one of their leaders decided to convert to Judaism, and then oblige everyone to convert to Judaism. And those Palestinians who stay in the land of Israel at that time, that became Palestine, they had to convert by force. First of all, they converted to Christianism, then they converted to Islam, and they're more entitled than any other Jews that are not Sephardic to be on that land, because it's their land. And it's about time we recognize that. And we must have peace on earth. And these people are the real Jews, because they have the chromosomes, they have the DNA, they have all that, which are direct descendants from the Elohim, from the son of Elohim and woman of the earth. And they are direct descendants, which means those who converted to Judaism and came from Eastern Europe, they're not direct descendant from the Elohim. They just converted, which means their DNA, their chromosome have nothing to do with Judaism. So they're not the children, the direct descendants of the children of Elohim and woman of the earth. They're not. So what is the right to occupy that land, pretending to be Jews, pretending to be the ones that have survived the Holocaust and all that, and descendants of the Holocaust, playing on that to we poor people, we have been slaughtered, we have been killed, they killed 6 million. And now we're doing the same to Palestinians, but that's okay because we have been suffering.
Indeed.
A Jew shall not kill, it shall not steal. That's in the 10 Commandments that were given by the Elohim to Moses. Do they respect that? No. So they're not Jews. They're invaders. It's very sad to reach that, and you can see the ultra-Orthodox Jews from the Nature Carta, they're pro-Palestinian and against Zionism, against the state of Israel. And they know the state of Israel will be destroyed one more, and there will be a new diaspora. We have been trying to avoid this. We have been trying to give all we could to all governments, all information to all governments of the state of Israel, as I was living in Israel for 18 years. Nothing. They are called by the most important of all the Elohim, who is Yahweh. My people are the people with a stiff neck. They get slapped and they start again and again and again. And all the prophets that were sent by the Elohim, they were killed or jailed. You have a lot of examples, and I can provide many of them, but it's, the only meaning that the state of Israel was created was to welcome the last Elohim messenger, who is the long-awaited Messiah, and build the third temple, because he is the one that needs to build the third temple. We are behind him, and that's what is the characteristic of the Messiah. He must have people behind him, and he must be willing to build the third temple. But it's not the Messiah they're waiting for. They imagine someone that will make miracles, that will pray, that he will be a big rabbi, but they also know that when the Messiah will come, he will bring a new interpretation of the Torah.
Yeah.
And this is, when you read the messages and you take the original Hebrew Bible, it's the demystification of the Torah. And this is the message that our ancestors were not able to understand. And now we should understand, because we have the technology, we have science, we have everything we know, we need to understand and stop believing. Some people will never get that, because if you see how close is that circle, if you have Jewish scholars in any yeshivot, which are the schools where they study with rabbis, first of all, when there are, example, Ezekiel 1 to 128, which describe the landing of a UFO, they're not allowed to read it two students together. Just one, that they will not think about it. And if you have any question, you ask your rabbi. They're not entitled to read a newspaper. They're not entitled even to take one flyer from anyone. They only read what the rabbi asks them to read. Is that they put them in the bag, they close the bag, and that's it. You stay there and you don't move. So you don't think and you don't decide of anything, and you don't talk about anything without that is not what we have been that you have been taught. That's all.
Thank you, Léon. Léon, I could listen to you talk about this subject all day. And what I find so rare is someone with the backbone to actually speak the truth and to speak your own mind. Because, as we know, the lobbies from Israel, let's say Israel, the country, have controlled people's freedom of speech through lobbying groups, etc., through politics, and funding politicians, and certainly now, even in Britain, it's becoming harder and harder and harder to speak the truth. In order to speak the truth, you have to be a subversive or a terrorist. You're classed amongst those terms. So it's humbling to listen to you speak, and I thank you for having that backbone to speak out.
Let me add something, Glenn.
Yes.
When I read the message and I understood the message, for me it was a revelation and a real pleasure and a freedom to understand what was the message of the Elohim. Then, because I was not respecting any the Jewish religion, I couldn't care less. But since I read the message, then I become a real Jew. And those who don't recognize the Elohim and their messenger, no matter if they're born from a Jewish mother, no matter if they're rabbis, they're not Jews. Because to be Jew is to recognize the Elohim as our creators and not as a single God. Because the Bible speak by itself. It's all plural. And in the Bible, you have even verses that say, they're coming from a far land in the skies. So how do we call today people who came from a far land in the skies? When I ask this question, I say, oh no, it doesn't mean that. No, tell me what it means.
It's people are by and large very easily manipulated, it sounds, because life is busy. There's so many things that we'd rather not think about. We've got to get on with earn our money, do etc. It's hard. It is hard to keep our integrity throughout subjects in life. It is very difficult, and I respect for some people who will say, but yes, all of this is may be true, may not be true. I don't know. But what if the extraterrestrials come? What if they do come? How does that affect me? Like, what relevance does that have to me? How will I benefit as the small guy in the street going to work, or the single parents trying to struggle to make a living and put food on the table for their children? How will that affect me? Will it only be governments getting new technologies, new benefits that will never filter down to the small guy and girl on the street? Brigitte, what are your views on the actual benefits of an extraterrestrial contact for humanity? And when I say humanity, I know it will have economic effects, I know it will have government effects, I know it will have all of that, which are very complicated, and we'll talk to Daniel about that a little bit. But what are your views on how will we benefit? How will humanity actually benefit from an extraterrestrial contact, and why should we care if they come?
Yes, well, that is a broad subject. I mean, I would say probably the first one that we can imagine. I mean, not the first one that came to mind while Léon was talking is that Palestinian will be considered as a Jews. And I think that could be like a shaking moment in our society.
Oh dear, can't wait for that.
More seriously, they have, according to what Rael explained to us, they have 25,000 years advance. And how can we explain 25,000 years of advance scientifically and in every aspect of life? It's very hard to comprehend. But I want to take an example that I often take, is that between the moment where we were able to fly, so the brothers Wright, who were riding the first plane, up to the moment we had the first atomic bomb, that was 41 years. 41 years between discovering the way to fly to exploding ourselves, right? So, and you have the same type of gap between the moment you have the first computing system in let's say in the 80s, where we're having all computers and all that, and now going to now where we have AIs with analytical power that are able to sway the direction of democracy. So we have, again, it's 40 years of science, of physics there. 40 years of physics, and we changed the life of everyone. Today we are all using AI, iPhone, and all these things, while it was not available 40 years ago. So to imagine what they could have done in 25,000 years is impossible. But we can imagine also, or try to figure out all the different departments in which they're going to help. And if we stick, for example, with physics, they obviously are able to transport themselves into this room without having a vehicle. That's what Rael says. They could come just here and appear. It is a relationship with space and time that we cannot imagine, right? So that's something that definitely will change our day-to-day life if we have access to it. The other part of physics that I like to highlight is the energy. Today, most of the suffering and wars have for origin some are religion, but mainly the source of energy, the greed for energy, the need to control energy. And that's what is happening in Iran. That's what was happening in Venezuela, and it's been going on for centuries. The moment we understand what type of energy they use, because obviously they're able to transport from galaxies to galaxies, moving, as Thomas was saying, moving planets and solar systems. They have access to a universal energy that is probably likely available to everyone without any cost or effort once you understand how it works. That's my little imagination, but I believe it is likely to be so. So the moment we stop the energy race, and it is available for everyone, then we can care about something else and care about the creation of the Elohim and the earth and then every human being. So just that change in physics, or the understanding of physics, or access to physics understanding, will change everyone's life for sure. But I would say the most striking revolution will be in the biomedical field, because right now, obviously the scientists behind all medical experiments and applications have to be evolutionists. So even if you believe in God, it's kind of the background. You have to follow the evolutionist theories, according to which we are the result of random evolution. So therefore, you can remove tonsils, gallbladder, appendix without any problem when closing your eyes. But once you recognize that the human being is a masterpiece of creation and every part of it has been thought and designed so that it works as a whole, then you have a completely different take on health. And we have to remember right now the most advanced will do some genetic editing. You know, you look at the DNA, you try to reprogram it so that it doesn't age as fast, or you can change, so with CRISPR, you can remove the full gene and put a new one. That is toddler activity, compared to what they did. They wrote the whole DNA. They know exactly from all ACG letters how it works and how it should be done, and also not only on the simple book of letters, but also on the epigenetic part. So it's a three-dimensional molecule, and it's fascinating what they have been doing. So having access to that, it's the end of degenerative disease. You cannot have degenerative disease if you understand the cause, and you can have access on how to change it. But it's also access to longevity. You have to remember that what is explained is what in the message they gave to Rael is that they can live about 1,000 years. And if you remember part of the Bible, it says that the first human beings that were created had a lifespan higher than 700. Some of them were 800, 900, Methuselah or Noah, all these ancient human beings reported in the Bibles, but it's also in other legends in other continents. It means that when they recreated us after the flood, and I encourage you to read all these books, it's done, it's available everywhere. They limited our lifespan to 120 years. That means that they tweaked our DNA in such a way that we don't have access to the same longevity. I want to live that. I want to understand. I believe that we could have access to a longer life And imagine what we can really create and realize if we accumulated knowledge without degenerative disease, without the brain fading for over 200, 300, 400 centuries. That's the progress we could do is unimaginable. And it's also one of the reasons they tweaked our lifespan, because we were going too fast and not having enough wisdom growing at the same time. And so that is, I would say, I mean, we can also talk about cloning and eternal life and all that, but I would say the most important science that I expect and that will be needed at first is the science of supraconsciousness. Because all of these technologies that could help everyone, whether it's physics, biochemistry, chemistry, and the science of life, cannot be given to individuals who haven't learned on how to respect those and how to use them. You know, you don't give a knife to a toddler. Obviously, you wait until it has the maturity to use it. So, to gain that maturity is what I call the growth and the awakening of the supraconsciousness. Having an individual able to completely live every one of their thoughts under not the control, but the benevolence of the supraconsciousness that is always lit up and there. And of course, everything animated by love, because when we talk about supraconsciousness, it's actually the manifestation of love. And so that refers to what Rael has been doing for 50 years. He has been teaching us that inner engineering that will allow us to be the right teacher. And recently, more and more, he's telling us, you're now the teacher I taught you, and you are the teacher of love, of infinity. You are the one who can bring humanity to that level where we can meet with those who created us and also interact with them. And I think that the biggest change changes will be wide on all aspects of our life, but probably the most important will be then access to understanding of happiness and love, and how we can actually live the life that they wanted us to live. That's my take on what that could bring. Very enthusiastic, very exciting, huh?
Yes, it's wonderful. And of course, without health, we have almost nothing. You know, without our health and our strength as individuals, you know, we're in a bad position. So, help that the extraterrestrial humanity, the Elohim, would bring to us the ability to cure and to knock out ailments and disease would be an amazing thing. But for me, as you know, in my life, in my profession, I've gone through times of great affluence and times of being utterly penniless, and that's just the nature of my work. So for me, just as a guy on the street, I want my replicator, my Star Trek replicator, a box in the corner that I can go to and I can say, I'd like steak and chips, so I can feed my parents who are needing care. I can feed my children who are needing care without having to go to work, that I can have a heat source, a water source, a replicator for food, and I can look after the people I want to look after without the need to constantly be scrabbling around to try and have sustenance for those who depend on me and for myself. Just a simple thing like that. I don't know, I say simple because I don't know how to make one, but it is a wonderful idea that we could free ourselves from economics, free ourselves from the power of the pound, of the dollar, free ourselves from big corporations and companies that do absolutely control us and do their best to do so, to free ourselves from that. And I hope primarily that when the Elohim come and the extraterrestrials arrive, that's a day of freedom. That potentially is the beginning of true freedom for us, to free ourselves from the control of big governments, big corporations, and the greed of the dollar, the pound, of the yen. You know, that has to stop, in my view. But we're a little way away from that. So Daniel, you have the huge undertaking of creating this third temple, this embassy for extraterrestrials, and as Léon said, that also is the fulfillment of a prophecy that will once and for all be an undisputed truth, that the world can recognize that Rael is the Messiah, that he is here for a purpose. He was always here for a selfless purpose, to help us, to nurture us, and to bring us into a new state of awareness, a new state of being. That a lot of that is falling on your shoulders right now, and I understand that's a huge undertaking you've taken on. You must have faced so many hurdles that you've jumped. You've been going for many years. How is that going? Where are we in that process? What have you had to overcome? I know there's bigotry involved. I know there's lots of things involved. Where are we in that, and how are you doing, and how are you personally doing? Because it's a huge weight of responsibility that you're carrying. How's it going with the embassy?
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everybody. Everything has been said. I have nothing left to say.
Great. Good night, everyone. It was lovely to have you here.
No, thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. I think that at the planetary level, we are more ready than governments to move on. I think that if you talk with people in the street or your family, they will all agree that probably UFO exist. We are not alone in the universe. This is kind of obvious right now. But the real question is, what's next? What's next? Are we ready to welcome someone from another planet? When you see what's happening on the planet right now, we're killing each other because we have different beliefs or different color or different race, we still have a lot of work to do, and this is one of the conditions, as I think Léon or Thomas mentioned, is we need peace on Earth before starting to think about welcoming someone from another planet. So this is a big challenge that we all have as Raelian, not only as Raelian, as a humanity. The embassy project is not solely a Raelian project. It's a project for humanity. And my role in this is to try to convince one government to give us the authorizations that we need to build that embassy. And it's very simple. The smallest embassy on Earth has authorization. There's a protocol existing for embassies all over the world. It's the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. So, of course, discussing with governments, it's not easy, as you can imagine. It's the hardest part is to get to speak to the right person, because there are many, many layers, many levels before you reach the right person to talk to. There are a lot of people interested in money. The first question they ask is, what's in it for me? So this is how the political system is working. So this is a big challenge to get to talk to the right person. But when I succeed to talk to the right person, either a minister or even the president of a country or politicians, I realize that one of the main challenge is to explain to them how it's going to happen. This encounter with the extraterrestrial civilization. And they have fear. This is what I realize. There are humans just like you and me. And, when they are politicians, ministers, or presidents, they want to be re-elected. They want to please the people they are supposed to be there to serve. So my main challenge, I would say, is to help them understand that the risks are real, But as Brigitte said, the outcome and the benefits are way bigger than the risk, because they're afraid to lose power. They're afraid that how the people of their country will react if they announce that they accept to build an embassy. The religious leaders, how are they going to react in these countries? So they have a lot of fears of what will happen, but there are a lot of benefits. And I think we are succeeding pretty well right now, because you know that right now on our planet, there is no protocol to welcome extraterrestrial. The only protocol to manage the diplomatic relation is the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. So this is why we decided with the Maitreya, with Rael, to propose to a country to organize an international conference to discuss a new protocol to be added to the Vienna Convention. Because in 1961, I don't think they were thinking about that one day we will welcome extraterrestrials, so we have to include some articles in the Vienna Convention to make sure it will go well. So this is the first step that we are trying to do. So it makes the pill a little bit easier to swallow, because we're not announcing right away that you will build the embassy, but let's gather countries together and discuss what could be the protocol to welcome extraterrestrials. It's very simple. We already prepared it. So just a few more articles to include extraterrestrial civilization to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. So what I can tell you today is what I feel and what I think is we are very close to find the first country to accept to host that conference. We are having right now discussions with a few countries very interested. And as you know, we signed a memorandum of collaboration with one country last year in 2025. So it's going very slow. You know, we are not necessarily their priority, but it's moving forward. So, I'm very, very optimistic that very soon we will succeed finding the first country who will accept to host that conference. We are very close to succeed. And, we have to do something, and something has to happen, because Elohim will arrive before 2035.
Yeah.
So if you consider that to build the embassy, it will take 2 to 3 years, to sign the authorization, the protocol and everything, maybe 1 year, so 4 years. So we have to be ready by 2030. So 2030 is tomorrow. It's in 4 years. So something has to happen. And I think that the movie Disclosure Day from Spielberg is helping a lot to help people understanding what's happening. I don't totally agree with especially with the final of the movie, which is a little bit tricky to me. But what I appreciate is that it's opening mind to something different, to something else, that there is something out there. So this is very, very important, because the big changes come from the people, not necessarily from the government. And we see exactly what's happening right now in the US because of the pressure that the people are putting on the government. They are disclosing some information. And I think that what they disclosed so far is the tip of the iceberg. I think there is way, way more to be disclosed. And the more they will disclose, the more there will be misinformation. But the intelligent people will see what there is there to see. So I'm very, very optimistic. There are some challenges, of course, but one by one, we are working to succeed, so to move forward. Yeah. So it's going well. It's going well. It's long. We need patience in action. And patience is not my main quality. So I've been there for 15 years to help Maitreya to assist him to make this project a reality. So I can tell you that I feel I'm more patient now than 15 years ago.
Yeah. I'm sure every time you go to a dinner party, there's lots of advice you're going to be hearing about how you should be doing it, what you should do.
Of course. And you know what? I appreciate it because I'm learning too. I'm learning. Yeah. So it's a beautiful adventure. It's a dream. Our dream will come true. That's for sure. Yeah.
For what it's worth, you fully have my support. For in the small amount that can mean, you absolutely have my support, and I'm sure the support of every single Raelian on the planet. And well done, and congratulations for how far you've come so far. And I hope the amendment to the Vienna Convention goes well. If you don't mind, I've one question that comes about from this, and I think one of the key things for me, and I know we've been talking for 50 minutes, and maybe if we keep it brief. I wonder, just as an ordinary person, why should I care? Why should I care that we evolved, or God created us, or we were created by human beings, which basically the extraterrestrials are human beings. We are created in their image, and they are a humanity. Why is that better than evolution? Why is that better than God? Why should I care which one it is? And just quickly, does anybody have any insight into why it's an important acknowledgement for each individual to make why it matters? If not, I'm happy to answer the question myself, but it's always better if someone else answers it.
It matters to them, Glenn, because first of all, they hook to a religion, they look to traditions, and they look to a family. Since I became Raelian, I have no idea how many calls I had from friends, from Jewish people, from community, from this, from that. And that, what you're doing is damaging our entire community, is damaging our religion. Because if you get out of it, we need to keep you in because we are one, we are a community. It's matter of, if you take, for example, rabbis or government, it's matter of power, and it's matter of money. They're going to lose their income. If it's discovered that the Elohim created us, there is no more place for God anymore. So most of those people who believe without understanding, they have two crutches. One is God, one is the soul. As our philosophy, and according to the message the Elohim give to Rael, there is no God and there is no soul. So if you take those two crutches, people fall down. They don't stand on their feet.
It's very interesting in the sense that the way I see it, believing that humanity created us gives me power because I'm a human. I'm not beholden to some divine thing or some random anything. I have the power to choose my own way in life. I am in charge of myself. Human beings, I'm a human being. I relate to that. I don't relate to an ethereal God idea that has to arrive, is everywhere, but has to arrive on a fiery chariot in a big noise and requires me to bend down and worship and go to place and give money on a Sunday. Like I don't relate to that. And I also don't relate to the random chance evolutionary idea either. I just think a human creation of human beings is a scientific creation. And so many people ignore the fact. They say that the only scientific creation is evolution. It's just nonsense. It's a nonsense. Human beings creating human beings is a scientific creation. It's not an ethereal mumbo jumbo. It's a scientific, tangible thing that we can, as a humanity, reach. So, having that power, having that strength, knowing that I am important, I am free, I am an individual, I am alive, that is important, that does mean something, as opposed to it being random and it doesn't really matter because it was all evolution, just chance, and you'd be gone and it doesn't matter. It gives me a strength of that things are important. There is something important happening. And that is, we have been given responsibility of carrying on humanity to another humanity at some point. That's a huge undertaking, and it's hugely important in my view. So for me, I think it's a big awakening to make the decision: do I believe in a God? Do I believe in evolution? Or do I believe in humanity? For me, it's a no-brainer. I believe in human beings, and I believe in all of us to make it happen. Anyway, thank you so much for the conversation. It's lovely. Honestly, I could talk to all of you for hours and hours and hours on this subject, and I really appreciate your candor and walking the walk, talking the walk, whatever that saying is. Well done, and congratulations again to Daniel, and keep going. Toi toi, as we say in the acting industry, which means good fortune. Hope things go well.
So welcome again. So that was the proposed embassy. Welcome again. So the most common questions that I've had from most people is proof and why do we need an embassy? And then there's also about the name of Elohim. So let's start with proof. So proof, what is proof? So if the way the way these extraterrestrials treat humanity, the idea is that they had come to Earth, they were in a scientific level similar to our own, they'd come to Earth, they'd created life, simple ones, and as they got better, they made more complex forms of living art until eventually they made human beings in their image. So we are their children and they love us. And just like when you have a child, that's not the end of the story. That's just the beginning of the story. What do you do with a child? You give it love, You give it support, you help it learn by itself. You don't force it to learn like in the past, people who used to force information into children in wooden benches. But now they realize, science realizes that the best way to get a child to learn is to help the child learn by itself and come to its own conclusions rather than whacking it on the head with the knowledge. And this is the way these extraterrestrials, our parents from space, treat us with respect. They don't just want to land and force us to accept them like that. They want us to begin to work things out by ourselves and begin to change ourselves. We'll go into that in a minute. But so again, with proof, they're hoping that we would, that there's a lot of evidence. I would call it soft evidence. And the best way to answer this maybe is to give my own personal journey. When I was a very young teenager, I was brought up in a Christian Catholic environment. I was even in a Jesuit school, and the Jesuits are pretty hard-nosed Catholics, but the advantage is they're very intellectual and they provide lots of knowledge. And so I thought, okay, these people are really convinced of their God and their religion, etc. Why don't I'll just try it. So I tried it for 2 months. I did everything right, and then in the end I concluded, no, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in this. But why do they believe in it? So I read the Bible from cover to cover, which is the Old Testament and the New. I read the Quran cover to cover, the Book of Mormon cover to cover. I began to read all the religious texts I could. I began to read about African mythology, African tales, about Mesopotamian tales, Japanese ones, Chinese, the Vikings, the Greeks, Romans, and they're all the same. Wherever you go in the world, even though people didn't have telephone in those days, they believed the same thing, that somehow these gods came from the sky, gods in the plural. Someone asked about the question of what does Elohim mean? Well, we might go into that further later, but especially as our specialist on Hebrew is there with us. But for now, let me just ask you a question. Do you know where what the Elohim means? It's a plural. Him is a plural, and it means those who come from the sky. I'll just leave you with a little quick question, which maybe we'll answer later. What is the meaning of, what is the Israeli airline called? Any guesses? El Al, and it's the same etymology, which is from skies or towards skies. It's got a movement. We can go into that later, but anyway, in my mind, in my teenage mind at the time, I was thinking these gods come from the sky, they come from the sun, such as South American mythology, they come from the moon, such as female deities, they come from other galaxies, Valhalla, Mount Olympus, again, the same, you've got the same etymology. Why do they all, and at the same time, and then they came to Earth, according to the mythology, they made simple life, more and more complex ones, until eventually they made humans in their image. I mean, that doesn't sound like an immaterial God to me. In their image means, like if I have a physical child. So at the same time, I was studying science. I suppose I should say my name's Marcus Wenner, Dr. Marcus Wenner, and I'm a neuroscientist. And I was always interested in hard science. And there's the idea, either we believe in a God, which is sort of like an immaterial thing which magics to everything, or we believe in evolution, which, don't forget, Darwin created the theory of evolution in the days when people were traveling in wooden boats. Do you know what that means? Wooden boats. I mean, the knowledge was almost zero. Whereas today we know that every cell in our body is like a hyper-complex robot, which fits together to make this human being, which is us. And we are hyper-complex, almost like a robot, which fits as part of humanity, which is also part of the civilization around the galaxy. So when Darwin created the theory of evolution, he had no knowledge He was just putting together these disparate elements. Whereas now we know that it's an impossibility. For a cell to function, it needs many things happening at the same time, which evolution doesn't take into account. So anyway, I was a scientist as a child, and I was thinking, but so there's no proof of God, there's no proof of evolution, nothing's ever been evolved despite numerous experiments in laboratories. Yet we are beginning to design life in laboratories. And a true scientist looks objectively at what is in front of them, however much we dislike what we see. And in front of me, there is no proof of God, no proof of evolution, but we are creating life in laboratories. So to project from that, I think, well, in a few years' time, we're going to probably make something dangerous. So we're going to have to go to another planet, solar system, out of harm's way, do our experiments, and then make simple life forms, more complicated ones, until eventually the ultimate is to make another human being like us. And when we have a child, what do? We love it. But true love is to let it grow by itself, not impose anything on it. True love is to help it develop by itself, give it individuality, guide it. I mean, you don't want to give your children matches before they've got the ability to understand that they can burn themselves. So you've got to balance the level of technology with the level of wisdom so that humanity doesn't destroy ourselves. And that's a predictable time. And that's today's world. But anyway, so back to my own personal journey. I was thinking these things. I was thinking, well, if we're about to create life in our own laboratories, then surely that's how we were created. And we've got all this mythology around the world saying that it was people from the sky. So it must have been, there's no God, there's people from the sky. So that was my journey. So that's my own evidence, if you like. But I don't want the Elohim don't want to impose proof on people. I mean, they could. Imagine if suddenly they appeared in front of you and said, I am who I am, and everything you've thought in the past is wrong. That is a mental trauma. That is aggression. That's violence, psychological violence. These are important things, and that's why they want an embassy, because they want to allow us to invite them. That's love. People say, well, why do they need this damn embassy? Why are you talking about this embassy? Why don't they just hover above the Houses of Parliament or the White House? Well, okay. What if they did? Imagine them hovering above the White House, the one which President Trump has taken so much pride to defend his opera gallery. They would be shot down straight away. Well, they would escape, of course, because these extraterrestrials have got huge technology, allowing them to travel from solar system to galaxy to universe. So they won't actually be harmed, but that's no way to start off a love relationship. Especially today. Look, every government, every military system has got its sights looking at the sky for anything non-part of their own country to shoot down. Right now, that is the world we're in. So if they were to hover above the houses of the White House, that is not the right way to start. So but then if they did, the Russians will say, well, why don't they hover above our house and the House of Parliament? Why don't they hover above ours? And then in Africa, in France, in Palais de Versailles, and this and that. Well, they can't all do it in the daytime because it's night in one country, daytime in another. It's unfair. And if they do hover above a political building, what does that mean? It's them saying, I agree with your political system. I agree with your religious system, with your cultural system. And of course they don't. Because the embassy is not just a parking place. for the UFOs. The embassy is to greet people and to let humanity meet the people inside and to help humanity gradually adapt to the shocking difference in thinking that these extraterrestrials have. I mean, in some countries, it's shocking for a woman to show her face. That is shocking. Do you think these extraterrestrials are going to cover their face? These extraterrestrials are from a loving culture where they live in a way which is designed for happiness. We live in a culture which is designed for work, for hard labor, for survival. The whole of the last few thousand years have been survival. Okay, it's the thinking brain which has developed, which is there for our survival, to create food, to create shelter, to create science, medicine. It's all very good. But the whole point of that, the reason why these extraterrestrials designed us with that in that part of our brain, is so that we can survive and build a loving civilization of freedom and peace, one where robots will be able to take over all the hard work, where artificial intelligence will do all the thinking, and our thinking brain will no longer have to be disrupting our harmony. Our thinking brain will be around us. It'll be the AI of the future, looking after all our needs. So we don't have to live in a transactional world of money. Because what does money do? Money says, I pay you for this service, therefore you must obey me. I'm your boss. And if you don't do it right, I can shout at you, I can insult you, I can kick you out. You are my slave. That is thinking brain, money, transactional civilization. That's what we're born into. That's what we're used to. We're used to thinking that men are the boss. Only just recently are we realizing that women are probably more likely to help humanity survive than men. We're born into a world where only almost yesterday, people thought people of black skin were inferior. There's still many people who think that. And yet, what these extraterrestrials tell us is that the first humans that they made were in fact black. What a shock. That means what we thought was God was black. And then all these generations of invaders, of colonizers who thought, oh no, the white is the supreme race. Everything else is inferior. Suddenly, that's a shock to this culture. So this embassy is a source of revelation, a source of love, where it's not money which is the currency of the future, it's love. We don't do something as a transaction. I'll do it on condition that you do something for me. That is not the way to happiness. That's not what a human being is designed for. A human being is designed to just do things for the pure pleasure of doing it. And the greatest pleasure is doing things for others. It's giving love to others, playing music for others, theatre, cooking, looking after, caring, discussing. That's human values. That's what these extraterrestrials created us for. Love. They are the representation of love. And that's why there needs to be an embassy. As I say, it's not just a parking place for a metal shining UFO. It's a source of light for humanity. And it challenges religious fears, it challenges security fears, it challenges cultural fears, psychological fears. And it's a way of letting humanity invite them and gradually get used to these ideas and learn and realize that we had money, transactional, thinking brain society of the past, and the future is beautiful. The future is where we don't have to have money, where we've got a paradise society, where in fact all the religions, all the mythologies had in fact predicted this, the coming, the return of their Messiah, the return of their prophet, the return of their teachers. Again, through all the civilizations of the world, the mythologies, there's that same recurring theme of a world which will be beautiful. So that is another need of the embassy. So that answers a little bit about my own personal journey for proof, answers a little bit about the need for the embassy. Now, any other questions? Those were the two main questions. Here's one from Brittany. Oh, here we are from Jabu. What about those are seen in the skies? Aren't they already here? Very good question. As it says in ancient writings, there will be signs in the skies. So again, as I say, these extraterrestrials, we call them the Elohim. They are not here to whack us on the head and force us to believe in their existence. They want us to gradually come to our own conclusions. So they do appear, not all UFO sightings are them, but many of them are. And they are doing it in a way to get human beings to think, what is that? How could that suddenly fly through the sky? Why are they here? That's no aeroplane can do that. So yes, so these UFOs, they are here, but they want to go through this one person, Rael. This is a French journalist whom they had contacted in 1973, and they dictated a series of messages. And that's what the Raelian movement often calls the messages. So if you hear that jargon, that's what it means. It's a whole book which you can read, you can download for free, and it explains the motivation of the person dictating this message to the French journalist is called Yahweh, and he explains that it was them who created life on earth. Human beings mistook them for gods. They kept in contact with humanity through progressive revelation, through various contacts every epoch, adapted to the understanding of the people at their age, which we often call prophets. There's been prophets in many parts of the world, many in Africa. There's the little people. There's so many traces of extraterrestrials, of these people from space. And there was another question which was asking, are the Elohim, is that a name for all the extraterrestrials in the universe or just this particular race? Well, the Elohim refers just to the race who created humanity. But there are many other infinite life forms, infinite consciousness forms, which look humanoid and non-humanoid. And I tell you, even more need for an embassy, because if there's so much difficulty accepting people with a slightly different color of skin, slightly different shaped nose, what are we going to do with someone who's got 3 eyes or no eyes? So again, another need for the embassy. So to reply to your question, there's infinite life and consciousness throughout the galaxy, but these particular ones who made humanity, we call the Elohim, but they've got various names in other cultures, in different civilizations on Earth, and we are their children. So they are fairly exclusive in the sense that humanity is we are their babies. So we are still fairly violent. And so at the moment, it's a bit like, parents taking their baby out in a pram. It's better if other people don't look in the pram too much, or, okay, they can smile, but not pick up the baby too much. And it's a bit like that. In a sense, the Elohim are looking after us privately. So at the moment, not too many other civilizations are coming to visit, though they won't block. There's some which they don't block. Won't go too much into detail, but there's more information about that. And yes, someone asks, are the Elohim and Anunnaki the same? Well, Yes, all these traces that we have in the Sumerian tablets, in the ancient Akkadian, in Mesopotamian texts, in the ancient Jewish Israelite texts, the Japanese ones, the Viking ones, they're all talking about these same, what we call the Elohim, this same people who came to Earth and made life. But of course, a few thousand years ago, people couldn't really understand. And so mystified and added bits on and left bits out and were afraid of them. Some were very afraid. And so there's sometimes in some of these ancient writings, there's a bit of paranoia towards these people. Without complicating things too much, I might just add that when these extraterrestrials, when the Elohim originally made life, just before they made human beings, and human beings are intelligent with a certain level of free will. And there were some of these extraterrestrials on their government who were very pro this creation, and some who were a little bit afraid, saying, well, these humans are quite violent. What if one day they get enough knowledge and try to destroy us? So there were different parties within the government. Some are pro and some are against, but they have got a very loving form of government. So they don't hate each other. They discuss things and balance things. And so there is one party was led by someone which we call Satan, which diabolo, which means is basically the tempter, the person whose job it is. Then Yahweh, who's the boss, said, okay, it's your job. If you're afraid of human beings, furnish proof that they might destroy us. And then on the other side of the spectrum, there is someone which we call Lucifer, which means the bringer of light. You've got the same personality as Prometheus in Greek mythology, or Shiva in Hindu mythology, who brings the flame to humanity. And there's the same type of different names, but the same personality in mythologies all around the world. There's often light, knowledge to human beings is portrayed by flame because it brings light, but it also can be dangerous. So Lucifero, the bringer of light, he was the one who really loved the human beings, the scientist, and says, I think we should trust them with knowledge, give them a little bit of knowledge. And Satan was saying, no, don't give them knowledge. In fact, if you go to Job in the Hebrew Bible, you can see a discussion between Job and Yahweh, where Job says, well, Yahweh says, well, look, see, Job is a great guy. He loves me. And Satan says, yes, but he only loves you for your money, basically. He only loves you because you're nice to him. If you're not nice to him, he'll hate you. So Yahweh says to Job, to Satan, okay, do what you want. Let's see what happens. And anyway, so poor old Job gets all sorts of illnesses and terrible things happening, but he sort of holds strong. So anyway, if you look into the ancient texts, you'll find lots of things like this. In fact, a lot of it is actually in the book which we call The Message, which I mentioned before. So that is about so there's the faction which is pro giving human beings a certain amount of knowledge. There's the faction which is against it, and they're still not sure. The verdict is still out. Will humanity use its knowledge to destroy itself? That is the conclusion. That's Yahweh's judgment. Yahweh said, well, okay, we'll stay in touch with them. We'll give humanity levels of wisdom, self-development. We won't give them technology just yet. Let them develop their own technology and see if their level of technology is counterbalanced by their level of wisdom. And when the time comes when they've got sufficient technology to destroy themselves, If they are basically destructive, then they will destruct themselves out of existence. So that was the deal. They thought, okay, before humanity has enough technology to travel through space from one solar system to another and be a threat to anyone else, if they're basically bad, they'll destroy themselves. So that is that was the final deal. So we are in that phase now, which is another reason why they contacted us now, saying, build us an embassy. We would love to meet you. But now is this crucial moment where humanity could destroy itself out of existence if we don't use what? If we don't use love. If love doesn't become the priority. I mean, how many politicians talk about love? I don't remember hearing any. They talk about the economy. They talk about you have to work hard to keep your family. You have to dominate the other countries. You have to, all sorts of things. But where is love? Love is the only solution. Without love, hate just amplifies. It was your fault. No, it was your fault. No, it was your fault. No, 2,000 years ago, it was your fault. And it just gets worse. There has to be some form of forgiveness. There has to be some form of restorative justice. There has to be love. And that is the message coming out. That is the basis of the embassy. The message coming out of these UFOs, love, which will shine out of the embassy. So on your questions, what about those seen in the skies? Yes, those are these extraterrestrials. Are they the same as the Anunnaki? Yes, but all these old texts, they're based on these traces which these extraterrestrials left, but they mystify them and fear them, and some are a little bit paranoid, some are not. And is there still a need to persuade countries to host the embassy, or is the final selection done and concluded? Well, we're still waiting for various countries. We still need extraterritoriality. Still need a government to allow us to build on their land and not worry about something coming from the sky onto it. That is one of the important points. So we're waiting for that. But as Danielle said, for the Alliance for ETs, the thing which they are doing at the moment is to adapt the protocol. As he said, the protocol was established, the Vienna Protocol was established for foreigners, for an embassy to be able to allow foreigners to come into their country. This was foreigners from the neighboring country or at the other side of the world, but it didn't take into account from another planet. So now we are adding a clause so this protocol can accept people from another planet. And that's the first step in persuading or allowing a country to then allow extraterritoriality on its country. So then someone said, is it fair to expect humanity to decide its fate through self-destruction or self-redemption when our earth is ruled by a handful who are warmongers and decide the fate for the many? Very good point, Peter. Very good point. Well, I can only give my own opinion here, but they do say a country gets the leader that they deserve. And they do say that a leader is made by their circumstance, and the circumstance is made by the people. So there is a certain connection between the fact that a country self-destructs or a country is aggressive and the people in it. But it's a two-way thing. And it's up to us to begin to change that. It's up to each one of you to for us to pacify ourselves, to be beings of light. That's what this symbol is about. Here we are. The symbol of infinity, where everything is connected, where the swastika, infinity in time, the six-pointed star. Some people call it the Star of David. I call it the six-pointed star because it existed before David existed. And by calling it the Star of David, you're saying, okay, this belongs to David. It no longer belongs to David or the people of David because they don't deserve it anymore. As Léon will tell us maybe later on, it belongs to the people. It belongs to humanity. It belongs to infinity. And it represents infinity in space. Inside each atom, there's subatomic particles, and even smaller ones, and galaxies, planets, people, particles. So it goes on forever. And we are part of this huge infinite galaxy, which is part of a huge atom, which is part of a huge thing. So we are just in infinite space and time. And when we feel that, not think it, but feel it, suddenly everything is love. And that's each one of us, whether you believe in the Elohim or not, whether you believe in extraterrestrial or not, whether you believe in the need for an embassy or not, you can't deny that love is the only real solution. And it's each of us duty as a human, as a living being, to be a being of love and to spread this around. And that's the way that we can begin to change humanity, and that will change our leaders. And then as the leaders change, or as the culture changes, then new people born into the slightly better, slightly more loving culture will then have a little bit more of an effect. So, I mean, you're right. That's a good question, Peter. But I believe everything's connected, especially us. And it's up to us to do as much as we can to change things. And that's why this self-destruction mechanism is a bit like a key in a lock, you know. To make peace on earth, we have to get all our ducks in a row. The key has to do all the little bits of the lock all in a row. So it's a good test. It's a good check to ensure that only loving, peaceful beings are able to leave their own planet, their own solar system, and meet and join the community of superconsciousness throughout the universe and galaxy. Anything else? From my knowledge, the extraterrestrials landed in Abzu, South Africa, where they found gold. South Africa would be an option for the embassy. Well, yes, anywhere which can give permission. As it happens, there are many. I mean, in the past, these Elohim, these extraterrestrials, used to live with human beings. That's why, especially in Africa, in many parts of Africa, there's lots of tales of the little people who lived lived in the forest, lived amongst the people. You know, in Ireland, you've got the leprechaun, again, leprechaun, the same etymology. You've got elves, the same Elohim etymology. These little people who, again, you were talking about gold in South Africa. Well, a leprechaun is supposed to know where all the gold is. You know, there's all these common things in all the history, but there's many of our brothers and sisters from Africa, from Kama, as we call it, who you will, if you look, I'm sure you know better than me. There's so much traces of these extraterrestrials who lived with humanity in harmony before they returned back to their planet. So many traces. Just go and look at it in a modern vision of things, because in the past people didn't really understand, they mystified it, but look at it. So that's that. Okay, so it is already 9:30, so we'll be going for over 1.5 hours. What will happen should no government accept or approve land for building the embassy? Again, good question. I don't necessarily have the answer. except I think the Raelian movement and Alliance for ETs will not give up. And the more we go into the future without destroying ourselves, the more it'll become so obvious that extraterrestrials exist and so obvious that they need an embassy that it'll have to happen. That for me, the only thing stopping it is not that the government won't accept it, but it's whether we destroy ourselves before a government accepts it. That's my own personal take on it. And all the more reason to, whatever one's beliefs, whether one's Muslim or, you know, or Jewish or this or that, love is the answer, and that is the way to save humanity. We could talk about the night journey for Muhammad, where maybe I'll just talk very quickly about that, because we were talking about prophets, and someone had mentioned that in one of the private questions. Well, as you know, Muhammad, one night, he was living in Mecca, and he was woken up by Angel Gabriel. How was he woken up? Angel Gabriel shook his big toe. So you can't get more physical than that. It's not a ghost. Wake him up shaking his big toe. And he took him to this flying machine, which in art, in Muslim art, Islam art, is portrayed as a horse with a human head and wings. And that's because it can obey human command, it can fly, and it can travel. Sometimes it's portrayed as a flying carpet, hence the mythology of flying carpets, etc. And it means the shining one in Arabic. And so he was taken from Mecca to Jerusalem. And there, where he laid foot, that is where the dome of the mosque was built. As it happened, now one wonders why, that was also on the old temple, the land of the old temple. So suddenly you've got these two big religions connected in this way. You've got the Second Temple, which is one of the most important places for Jewish religion. Suddenly it becomes also one of the most important places for Islam at the same place. I mean, you've got to have a sense of humor to engineer that. And then from there, he was taken to what's called the seven heavens, where he met Allah, i.e. Yahweh, seated on a throne. And then he was explained many things. And then they talked about meditation. They talked about, I don't know enough words. I know a little bit of Arabic because, my Maltese upbringing, heritage. But Yahweh was saying, okay, you need to get people to meditate or to prayer, 20 times a day, 30 times a day. And so Muhammad was bargaining with him, they can't do that. How about 2 times a day? No, 15 times a day. No, 4 times a day. Eventually he bargained, which is part of the culture. And that's what led to the prayers these days. But the reason why I'm mentioning that is because every Muslim knows that story. But have you ever thought what it means? Have you ever thought, what is this flying machine which took him from Mecca to Jerusalem? Why was he touching that same spot, which is what the Raelian movement, the Elohim, were hoping that the embassy would be built somewhere there. The embassy, which is the third temple, which is something that's been predicted. The whole point of the Jewish religion is to build a third temple. So perhaps I'll just pass I don't know if Léon, you want to make any comments of this? You're welcome to if you want. If you want, just unmask your microphone if you do. If you don't, no problem. But it's just quite good because we're not just Europe here, but we're also Africa. And thank you, Léon. And Islam is an important part of Africa. It's important for people to begin to read their sacred texts with a new eye. And I've just done a very simple one, which is the night journey, begin to open the lid. I encourage you all to read your old text again, but in the light of these new revelations. So there's that. Okay, Ariel, if you want to make any comments, please.
Hello, dear Marcus. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this lecture. Well, we have been here for many, many years talking about the embassy, talking about this message. And today we have the privilege to have this lecture because times are coming to us very fast. And we should build this embassy to welcome our creators from space. Those called Elohim, who have been taken for gods or by gods from our ancestors who had no knowledge, no technology, no science. Today, we are able to understand and to stop believing. And this is what the Elohim messages are for. They are for us in these times of revelation, and they want us to understand, to welcome them as our creators and not as our superior beings like gods. And this embassy we want to build, it is indeed the third temple the Jewish people want to build. But before building it, they need to recognize the Elohim messenger. And it's written, when the Messiah will come, he will bring a new version of the Tanakh, of the Torah. And our message, the message the Elohim gave him on December 13, 1973, reveal all the information, all the text with an understanding today. With an understanding that is not mystical, it's a demystification of the original Hebrew Bible. The demystification of all religions. I saw a question, someone say, well, do you believe in God or something like that? Why should we believe? Well, recently I have seen a very, very funny ad on Facebook, and not an ad, just a picture. And someone was asking a question to another man, and he told him, do you believe in extraterrestrials? And the man replied, no, I believe in God. Why don't you believe in extraterrestrials? The other one asked again. He said, because I haven't seen any. Have you seen any God? We have born in a religion because of our fathers and grandfathers and ancestors were believers, either in Christianity, in Judaism, in Islam. They impose us a religion. When we grow up, we decide. And the Raelian message is not to believe, is to understand. This is why Raelians don't baptize their children. They don't impose the religion on children. Everyone is able to understand after reading all the religions. And if they want to be atheist, No problem with that. We don't impose religions. We have a message that Rael received, and that message is for you. It's for the entire humanity. This message, please read it. It's for free, and you can download it for free on our website, rael.org, in any language you wish. Just there is a question after you read this message. After you read it, just ask yourself a simple question. What if it's the truth? That's all. There is no other question. What if this is the truth? Because today we have all the elements to understand that we have been created by a more advanced civilization with over 25,000 years ahead of us, in advance of our times. And governments and religions are trying to avoid this revelation to be revealed. Why? Because of the power, because of the fear. Governments may fear to reveal this to humanity. Imagine tomorrow, either President Trump or someone goes on television and they say, well, we are very sorry to announce you that God never existed. We have been created by an extraterrestrial civilization. Imagine the Jewish people, the fanatic of any religion, Muslim, Christians, or others, what they will be. A revolution worldwide? They will try to kill all those who say that there is no God? What will happen then? Imagine, it's a shock for humanity. And today, we are able to understand, we're able to stop believing. So open your mind, open your eyes. And as I say, when you read this book, it reveals the truth about our origins.
What if it's true? What if it were true?
The truth.
Thank you, Léon. Beautiful words. So before we finish, because we've been almost 2 hours now. Before we finish, I just wanted to say that Israel is basically mainly one tribe of Israel, but there were 12. So where have the others gone? And many have gone to Africa. I'm just answering that someone had asked a question, would South Africa be a good place for the embassy? Well, nowhere is out of the question. And Africa is right in the heart of it as well, because there's been many tribes of Israel who've gone to Africa and who've no one knows about, or some do know about it. So again, without going into too much detail, I'll leave you to do your own research. I'd like to say thank you to the people who helped organize this. Thank you for you coming. Thank you, Léon, for your beautiful words. And as he says, you can download the book. Oh, John's raised a hand. Okay, just briefly before we finish, because it's been a long night. Okay, can you unmute yourself, John? Go ahead.
Hi there. Hi. Yeah.
Very briefly.
Yeah, I just thought I'll add something in from the audience that can be seen. So the thing I'd like to add about the proof for me is, in addition to your wise words, Marcus and Léon, the what if one, that I think with such a high degree of unusualness about the situation, this is terra incognita. This is land we don't understand. So I think we have to go back to the words of Maitreya here and feel it. We can't think about it. If you apply the thinking brain now, we might all be sitting here in our chairs thinking, oh, it might be true. What does that mean? What does that mean? So we can get ourselves into a confusion. But if we just feel it, the wonderful infinity around us, the galaxies inside us, and the small molecules, and the the massive galaxy above us, thinking about it, you blow a fuse. I'm a scientist. I've been studying science for years. I've got 30 letters after my name, and my brain will be in meltdown. I already have enough trouble being a Raelian in the scientific community, but you know, it's a brain destroyer. So what I do now, I take the hint from you, Marcus, and the Maitreya, and you can just feel it. It's a wonderful feeling. And when I look at the swallows at night, and the beautiful world around me, I can just feel this infinity and this wonder around me. You can pinch your flesh. This is an amazing journey we're on, and I'm not surprised that it's going in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us the importance of just feeling and being. And that's a good note to finish on. Feeling, being, love at every opportunity. Thank you everyone for coming, and hopefully see you again. Hopefully meet you maybe one day in the flesh. Thanks then. Bye.